Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason. I'm a designer and a gamer. Today, I'm honored here to share with you guys with my thesis project, the known eSportsman. Nowadays, esports is an emerging industry, cultural phenomenon and a rising industry with high-speed growth. However, when we talk about esports, what are we talking about? We are talking about a competitive activity via video games, including mainly these four types. Organized professionally in big stadiums like this, that has over 380 million dedicated fans across the globe. We are also talking about a market with a size estimated over $900 million last year, and a single trophy that worth over $25 million. It has become a common consensus within the industry that esports is going mainstream and taking over the next generations of sports, which means my kids will be probably growing up in that environment. However, the more influential esports become, the more worried I get because I know behind the surface of its prosperity, it has severe social problem. And this social problem is not gaming addiction as most often reported, it is gaming toxicity. Gaming toxicity have various spectrums, including but not limited to sexism, racism, trash talk, sexism, flaming, and blame shifting. I believe it is a more noticeable social problem to tackle based on two reasons. First, gaming toxicity is dangerous. It is considered a kind of cyberbullying, which is linked to many negative outcomes like mental health issues. It is also one of the main reasons why new gamers leave esports games. So both gamers and game publishers share a common interest in preventing that danger. Second, gaming toxicity is unique because unlike gaming addictions, it is deeply rooted in the mechanics of esports games like its easy in, easy out matching systems. To make things worse, gaming toxicity can easily infect everyone like a virus. Therefore, we cannot make changes happen if we don't intervene in the gaming environment. In the scale of my thesis, I identified two typical and frequent gaming toxicity, flaming and blame shifting. Flaming means the negative attitude expressed vocally during a game, while blame shifting refers to shifting blame on someone else to avoid responsibility. Both of them are generated through team communication and can be avoided by one-side effort, so change can happen from there. In order to get a more comprehensive understanding, I interviewed with local gamers to understand their experience with esports. The research brought me to these three key insights. First, games are a place where society standards fall away, where players seize fun and freedom they don't have in reality. And games are a highly competitive environment where conflicts around decision making can happen. Second, lacking education of sportsmanship in the community, players aren't encouraged to communicate with others properly. So they don't really have a basic line when it comes to dealing with conflicts. Third, in real life, aggressive behavior triggers an immediate reaction from victim, a change in facial expression, tone of voice, body language, perhaps even violence. However, in the online world, those deterrents are missing or delayed, which help abusers see their victims as faceless imaginary cutouts who have no feeling and unworthy of empathy. During prototyping, I learned that first, there are some shared values on esportsmanship among gamers. While gamers have different sets of criteria as to how they represent in actual game behaviors. So, how might I inspire esportsmanship in actual game behaviors? Second, Gamers like to accept challenges. Well, they lose this interest in your intervention as soon as they find it boring. So I need to intervene in a way that gamers can accept. So how might I design intervention without losing fun? After several prototypes, I finally get a comfortable form of my intervention. Introducing the known eSportsman. The known eSportsman is a social role-play game co-designed with the gaming community that encourages conversation, builds safe boundaries, and cultivates esportsmanship. It is a new way of playing esports game. It is a meta game that directly intervenes team communication, and it can apply to most mainstream esports games because it only requires a role play during the game and a conversation afterward. So, what do I mean by metagame? By metagame, I mean it is a game about the esports game, and that's why I say it's a new way of playing the esports game. Let me explain how it works. So when you normally play an esports game, here are 3 steps how you play it. At first, the matching system will match you with random teammates. Then you enter the game with them and collaborate it to win the game. After finishing the game, you leave the game without knowing each other. Perhaps you will report your teammate if you lose, but that's it. By contrast, here's how it works when you play the esports game in the non-esportsman way. We don't really change the game flow mentioned, but we add another layer on top of it. So after you match with your teammates, each of you will assign a role by role card. And during the game, you will act it out and play the roles based on whatever the cards tells you. And after the game, you will have a conversation and where you discuss about the game, evaluate your teammates' performance, and even vote to identify the roles of each gamers. And so there are actually 3 kinds of cards, and each of them represent different personas, typical personas of gamers. They are griefers who are angry and toxic, esportsmen who are friendly and brave, and double side who can be either depending on the day. So I wish by exploring the identity of these featured roles and what they mean to them, players can have a meaningful conversation around gaming toxicity and esportsmanship. And they can get to know more about each other by telling which behaviors they appreciate and which they don't, so that the safe boundaries can be built naturally. The game is first co-designed and tested with online Dota 2 community. I designed the initial version of the game, but most of the elements, including the cards, were iterated during the test for the sake of playability and balance. For instance, the rules used to ask players to hide their true identity rather than to win votes by acting it out and telling the truth, which seemed not to encourage conversations, so we changed it. I would say it is iterations like this that define what the game is today. After the co-design session, I soon had a chance to host my game in the real world. I worked with Waypoint Cafe, which provide the space at a regular social event held by Super League Gaming, SLG. The SLG staff kindly gave me the permission to host the game and assisted me in recruiting the volunteers. This time, I implemented the game with the League of Legends community because it is more popular and it is the theme of that social event. The process of hosting the game accurately corresponds to the game flow. First, I explain the rules and send out cards to the volunteers. Then, I watch their gameplay and take notes during the entire games. After they finished the esports game, I facilitated the conversations and held this voting session. According to the feedback, the results are pretty positive. Over the past 2 months, I held game 4 times with 20 testers via 2 different esports games, both online and offline. 60% of the testers said they will recommend the game to their friends. 100% of them get more familiar with their teammates, and 80% of them find the games fun. The result all show that games impact on mind shifting, with 60% of testers changing their opinions on gaming toxicity, and 80% on 80% on eSportsmanship. I also really appreciate encouraging feedback like this, which convinced me that I'm doing a meaningful thing. And this quote told me that the idea of the game is articulated well, and I felt I'm not alone in developing the known eSportsman game. My thesis is not the end of my journey of tackling gaming toxicity. It is the start. Looking towards the future, I developed 2 scaling strategies for my game to make it more sustainable and accessible. First, I'm making the game open source. A full kit of the game with well-designed cards and clear instructions will be put on open source platform like GitHub so that it can be played in any events and it can scale in the online world. Second, I'm cooperating with experienced event organizers like SLG to incorporate my game in their events and it can scale by authorization in the real world. Ultimately, all those efforts are my attempt to searching for the social dynamics, which is rare in the esports games today. However, it was not like that. Games used to be social, and yet people changed after esports games disrupted the gaming field with competitive mechanics. I know we cannot go backward, but we can go forward with the attempt of bringing the social dynamic back in a way like a known eSportsman. And I am committed to cultivate the tradition of sportsmanship in esports. Thank you.